Alright, what's poppin', people? We're here, and I'm gonna shamelessly steal an idea from Finch. Fuck you, Finch. It's my idea now. So anyhow, for the uninformed, I run the NU Viability rankings thread, and we wanted to do an update because we just had the Sigilyph suspect test conclude. And well, here are the results of said update. I'll try to give a brief reasoning for all of these that I'll also type down here, I suppose. But most of this just to show off what happened, and so you can also get whatever, like, commentary that I would have. Because I do think that sometimes with the VR updates, we kind of just say what happened, and then I say some Pokemon to talk about, and then I don't really talk at all about what's going on here, and maybe why something grows. However, before we get into that, I must remind you, man, like the video. If you've watched this far, then you might be enjoying the premise of this video, and we do lots of informative content like this, because I like to try to improve the general knowledge of the player base as much as I can. So, you know, like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and then you won't miss another video. Anyhow, so the first rise you gotta talk about is Arcanine. Now, Arcanine has been pretty decent over the past few weeks, I think, as it's risen as a pretty competent answer to primarily Beware, right? It kind of is unfortunate that Arcanine doesn't check Panda well, because Panda, you know, scrappy, and of course it's got CB knockoff, which you don't want to lose your boots as a defensive fire type that's just kind of troll. But Arcanine's a premier Beware answer, probably the best one in the tier. It's a pretty good pivot thanks to Teleport. Pretty durable, all things considered, because Morning Sun. And it's also really good at forcing status onto certain Pokemon. It can get Toxics off on opposing Arcanine like Talonflame, Gastrodon, Mantine. And alternatively, if you want to run Will-O-Wisp, then you're pretty good at getting that onto Pokemon like Tyrantrum. So it's a pretty good lure of sorts if you need to cripple something for another Pokemon on your team. And I think even just another adaptation that's risen, especially in lieu of the Sigilyph ban, which makes it easier for Arcanine to do this, is we're seeing it run moves like Burn Up and Overheat more, because those let it just immediately dispatch a Beware. You know, you don't have to worry about any bullshittery at all. And I think that's really good for it. Previously, you kind of were forced to run Flare Blitz and Arcanine, because otherwise you let Calm Mind Sigilyph just kind of run you over. If it started getting boosts, you just couldn't do anything about it. It's not like you could paralyze it either, unless you, I don't know, fished for Thunderfang para. Something like horrible like that. But the TLDR of all this is this. Great Beware check. Generally good at spreading status with Toxic and Will-O-Wisp. And a nice pivot with Teleport. I think that's a pretty good way to summarize what we did. I'm not going to put too much here, because otherwise there'd be a lot of me repeating myself, and I don't think I need to say the same thing twice. What's this? Ah, nice. Rose suspect. No. No. Good. I didn't want to go to that link. Okay, good. We're saved. Now, the next model we got to talk about is Blastoise. Now, this one might be a little bit surprising to some, maybe not as surprising to others. But Blastoise in, like, recent weeks has been surging a bit on hyper offense builds, because it's a pretty good Shell Smash sweeper. We've seen a lot of Substitute on such sets, because it lets you trivially take advantage of Pokemon like, say, Gastrodon, that are, you know, status reliant on beating you down. Same with, like, Mantine. If it's not Haze, it's going to be needing Toxic to deal with you. And so Blastoise is just really great at, you know, setting up a sub and then getting up, a lot of the time, multiple Shell Smashes, which makes it very hard to deal with. In this current metagame, there aren't really a lot of defensive water types anyway that handle you well. And the ones that do exist that can beat you down, they don't beat you if you're sub. And something like Clear Smog Astro obviously is never going to deal with you, because then, you know, it's contingent on you not being behind a sub to clear your boosts. So that sucks. And with dual screen support, and Blastoise is already really good bulk, it's really problematic to deal with. I made a team recently with T-Spike's Drapion, and the only reason that I won the game I played against Hoenn Confirmed's Hyper Offense was because I had my T-Spikes up. So it didn't matter what the Blastoise did, there was no bullshittery being allowed. It just came in, got badly poisoned, and it slowly whittled away because, you know, Blastoise still is a little bit weak if you don't get that second boost off. It's not like Barbaracle, or even like Meteor Beam Omastar, which can, after that one Shell Smash, really wreak havoc. It's very reliant on those multiple boosts, which is why maybe we're not seeing it rise up to the, you know, A ranks or something like a Barbaracle would be. So, the summary of this, oh no, not in bold, friend. Substitute plus Shell Smash sets have been rising in popularity yeah, I see now why I was confused. Have been rising in popularity on dual screens builds because of Blastoise's natural bulk and ability to set up on status reliant bulky water types like Mantine and Gastrodon. It's a really cool build. I'm glad to see Hyper Offense start seeing some meaningful usage again, because I do think there is something to say about Hyper Offense needing to have a decent place in a meta, just because it helps keep down some of the like boring snooze fest passive play. If you could force your opponent to have to actually react immediately as opposed to just taking their sweet time, you know, setting up each hazard and then getting that little bit of chip, no, you force an immediate response with Hyper Offense. I think that's nice. And now we get to Comfy here. A lot of it's just Comfy's a nice, like, defensive fairy type that offers pivot support. Natural Cure. I've seen some people go Triage Draining Kiss on the defensive sets. I think that's a mistake, personally. I think the better sets go Natural Cure with Dazzling Gleam. You do miss out on the priority for Synthesis Healing, but it lets you absorb status really well, which is nice. And especially the case if you're like ever having to pivot in versus maybe defensive water type, maybe you just want to reposition like that. There's really not much to say other than the fact that Comfy is, oh, why did you rebold? Good defensive fairy type, can provide a good amount of utility between absorbing status, pivoting, and removing hazards. And yes, no, you're not, like, behind in the video when I'm doing this. I'm saying what I want to type before I type it, because for some reason I'm trying to make it harder on myself. Then we get to Cresselia. Now, I think nobody's surprised to see Cress rise. Maybe the question between A+ and S was in some people's minds. I think in other people's minds, it was very obvious. But Cresselia, a premier win condition of the tier right now. I mean, it's just really ridiculously hard at times to try to break Cress, even without any boosts. 120, 120, 130 is incredible bulk, just to have off rip, and it means you're really never going to break Cress with neutral attacks unless you're just some absurdly strong breaker like CB Tyrantrum or something. You know, just on sheer bulk, and, you know, Mono Psychic being okay enough when you look at what are our strong breakers that would hit it neutrally. It's also really nice because, like Sigilyph, Cresselia really punishes Pokemon like Scarf Mienshao and even CB Pangoro to an extent. If you lock into CC, you are risking giving game on that turn. Because it just switches into your CC afterwards and says, okay, me set up Calm Mind and me sweep your whole team because now you've given me a free chance to get a boost off. You know, maybe you'll have to activate my Key Berry too if I've got that one. But it's just so insanely hard to take down at times, and it offers so much defensive utility to teams in checking a lot of the strong breakers. It's even got a, like, favorable chance to beat Beware one-on-one, which is kind of insane for something that does not resist Double Edge and takes super effective damage from Darkest Lariat, even. So, you know, what do we want to say about Cress here beyond Premier WinCon with Calm Mind? Great at soft checking a lot of the wall breakers. Wall breakers in the tier. There are some issues, obviously, with Cresselia's move set. All the moves you want. You want into its set. Because when you look at Cress, a lot of you can run like Rest Talk or just Rest CM to attacks. If you want to avoid status, CM, or not CM, Sub's also good. Maybe you go Mono Attack, maybe you go stored power instead of Psyshock. Every set has some like pros and cons though. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that holds Crest back. It has some very defined answers that hold a solid place in the tier. But the positives far outweigh the negatives. Because it's also just a really easy Pokemon to justify on teams. And a lot of it's because of all the stuff it does defensively. It's a ground immune, it's a fight resist, it's just fat, so it takes those neutral hits like we said earlier. Not a hard mod at all to justify. And Decidueye is a mod that has risen, though, in response to Cress. It's got enough natural bulk to where you don't really care about even +1 attacks. With Jolly, you're faster than Cress. But another really cool thing is Long Reach Brave Bird, letting you just beat Beware down one-on-one. You know, if you Sword Stance up as the Beware switches in, you are OHKOing it the next turn. Long Reach, what it does, it lets you ignore Beware's ability, and so it does not get the extra damage resistance from Fluffy. Whereas something like, you know, maybe even an SD Pangoro would struggle to break a Beware even with close combat. Because, you know, Chople Beware and Fluffy makes it really fat. Decidueye doesn't care. And it's also a good check to Crest because of Spirit Shackle. You don't care about maybe Cresselia trying to pull-to-proof themselves with a Keyberry. You just boost, and then you say, okay, you're actually in here with me. I'm not in here with you, buddy. Right, answer to the rising usage of... And I'm saying rising usage because Cresselia has been on the up and up the entire month. In addition to Beware. Swords Dance, Long Reach, sets, let it beat down these foes despite them being otherwise good answers. I must say with Spirit Shackle. Through moveset techs like Keyberry, Cresselia, and, well, standard Beware with Fluffy. I don't know why I call that a moveset tech, but that's more directed at Cress. So with Dragalge, there's been a lot of talk from certain people about why you'd ever use Goodra over Dragalge. Like, even as a wall breaker, I've tried a little bit of Specs Dragalge myself lately, and it's real good. Dragalge's real nice because of Flip Turn. I think that's the primary reason you would use Dragalge 99% of the time over Goodra. Yes, Goodra's got the coverage. Goodra's got even just better natural bulk. Better speed tier. It's got discernible benefits to Dragalge. But Flip Turn just is so good. If you have spec sets, you don't care if the Bronzong's coming out, plus you might just chunk it with Draco anyway. But you can always keep up momentum, and that's especially the case with those Black Sludge Toxic Spike sets. You can consistently bring out these really scary breakers like Pangoro and Beware and Life Orb Mienshao. Entirely because Dragalge is so good at drawing in the steel types. You get them so many free opportunities to wall break. It's kind of insane. So, premier pivot that supports the fighting type wall breakers really well with Flip Turn. Generally, great wall breaker with choice specs as well. You could also add a few other things in there. It's a fight resist. You're not a great fight check. Don't get that mistaken. But if you need to, you can revenge kill the fight types. Drapion Rising. I think Drapion was frankly underranked to begin with. And I still think it's underranked despite getting a rise to B+. I'd put it like A-. Maybe you could justify A even. But Drapion's cool because it beats the shit out of Cresselia. Like, you just don't ever lose. There are two main sets of Drapion. You got Sword Stance, and that set takes a few forms. You can be just Resist Berry. Shuka Berry, I think, is the only one that Drapion can use. I don't think it has a weakness other than Ground. Right? Anyhow, I can't think of one. But you could also see Scope Lens sets with Sniper and those are like Cross Poison and Night Slash to just try to crit fish through checks. And then the set that I think is also pretty good, you can see the Whirlwind Drapion enthusiast Lax in the Discord. That set's real cool. Taunt Whirlwind Toxic Spikes knockoff is an insane amount of support. I've seen some people try to say, oh, well, look at that, you're teching so much just to beat Crest. Well, not really. It's not that I'm running that set to beat Crest. It's more that I'm running it because it beats Crest, in addition to offering a shit ton of utility. The Crest beating part's just a nice side benefit. It's also, helpful to have a Ghost move deterrent on your team. Drapeon's natural physical bulk is pretty good, and so it means you're not going to get immediately bounced back by even like a CB Golurk Poltergeist or a Delmise Poltergeist. It's, I think, what, 75, 110 on the physical bulk side? It's surprisingly good. So, great answer to Cresselia. Can provide an immense amount of support with Taunt plus Whirlwind with the utility set, I'll just say. Taunt slash Whirlwind slash Knock slash T-Spikes. We can just abbreviate it like this. And also has a potent Swords Dance set. Also, has potent Swords Dance sets. Now, Guzzlord's Rise might be a little bit controversial, and the only reason I say that is I think a lot of people felt that Guzzlord got a lot of its utility in the, not Cresselia, the Sigilyph metagame. Is one of the best answers to Sigil sets because they just didn't go D-Gleam too frequently. But I don't think that really negates this Rise as being justified. Guzzlord still does a lot of good between checking stuff like Copper-Raja, non-Moonblast Cresselia, being a generally good answer to a lot of the ghost types in the tier, frankly. Like, even to sit in Delmise, it beats up on pretty well. Still a good breaker with, like, Choice Band. Still good at taking advantage of things like Bronzong, even. There's just a lot of good that its typing and move pool let it do. So, even in lieu of Sigilyph leaving, it still offers a lot defensively between checking non-Moonblast Cresselia, and these are, this is a set, despite, it's not as common, obviously, and ghost types, like Delmise, Decidueye, and do I even mention Rotom? Rotom's good, but, like, how many people use Rotom? We'll only say these two. Stab, Choice Band Knockoff is also unfair. I mean, let's be fair here. Anytime you can boost Knockoff further, it's super good. Now, Kingdra only rose a little bit. I would rise it more, frankly, but it's really just this. Critdra. Focus Energy plus Agility Kingdra is, in my eyes, pretty damn good. I think, as a whole, offensive water types in Inyu are kind of, like, slept on. Part of it's because defensive water types aren't that common right now. I mean, other than me spamming Gastrodon, I don't know how many people are actually using things like Mantine and Gastro frequently. And I think that opens up Kingdra to have a lot of good. Now, you can say it also hurts Kingdra because it's kind of good at exploiting them due to its typing and not horrid bulk. But I feel like it benefits more from their presence than it would benefit from being able to switch into them and set up, you know? And it's nice, too, because if you're against a fat team, you can just only set up the Focus Energy and then sweep through with Crit Dracos and Surfs. And if you're against offense, then maybe you can just set up the Agility and sweep with Surfs. I think it's a pretty fun mon. There are also other sets that exist with it, but I think if you're going to use it, it should be for the Crit set. Now, Mienshao rising to S, I was surprised when we didn't rank it S initially, but the main reason that we're finally doing the Rise is because of Life Orb sets rising in popularity. They're beyond unfun to try to defensively answer. You get so much durability out of Regenerator. It doesn't matter. You're never weakened. You're never switching Mienshao into hits anyway, so it's not like you ever have to worry about, oh, what if you switch into a resisted hit and then take some Life Orb hits? No. You're not Tornadus T. You're not trying to use... There ain't no defensive utility with this mod. None at all. And, you know, even if you want to look at just the AOA set, that would be problematic enough, but Mienshao goes beyond that. There's Swords Dance sets. You could even see tweaks to the most common moveset for All-Out Attacker, which I would say is CCU turn Knock, Poison Jab. You got Rock Slide for Talonflame. You got, oh, what's the move? Blaze Kick if you want to bop Plume. I've even considered itemless acrobatics with Swords Dance. Hits Pod. Still hits Vileplume. It might just be a weird me set, but hey, let me have my set. So Life Orb Mienshao has surged in usage lately. It's incredibly hard to wear down because of Regenerator. Still maintains a lot of the utility, obviously, between Knock and U-Turn. So we're gonna say a lot of Choice Scarf sets utility with Knock Off and U-Turn. Swords Dance sets also very dangerous. Now, I'm not gonna say anything about Pincurchin beyond Rising to better reflect electric terrain. It's a Viability. That's really it. I frankly had Alolachu also dropping to C+, but enough people felt that Alolan Raiju had usage outside of these teams. I can't say that I've seen it get used much, but hey, if other VR Council people have, there we go. Rotomo, I think it's better than A. I think it's borderline. I think it's A+ rank. But Rotomo is so good because it has what I would call a nigh unblockable Volt Switch. You just can't switch in your ground types versus it because they're going to get blasted by Leaf Storm, or in the case of Flygon, burned by Will-O-Wisp. And so much of the time you end up just having to seed momentum to it. You know, even if you go to Pokemon like Dragalge or Vileplume or Goodra, you're still getting volted on. Or like just another generically bulky on the special side mon like Copper or Bronzong, you're still getting volted on. The best you can do a lot of the time is just try to either take as little damage as possible and then figure out your game plan against whatever broken wall breaker is coming in. Or hope that if it's like a Choice Scarf Rotom that you get every 50-50 play right with your Volt Blocker. And even then, you're still risking getting tricked and at Leaf Storm the second turn. So we'll say Premier Pivot because its Volt Switch is super duper hard to block because of the threat of Will-O-Wisp or Stab. Oh, that's not how you spell Wisp. Will-O-Wisp and Stab Leaf Storm. Both Defog and Choice Scarf are great sets. And Nasty Plot could still be threatening too. I like the idea of Plot because you can pretty easily justify Volt Switch on Nasty Plot sets. And so you could pretty much just throw Rotomo out there and bring in mons like, say, Salazzle and Starmie that can break the answers to Rotom and then allow it to have a super easy time cleaning late. Now for Salazzle, a lot of it comes back to defensive water types not having the greatest presence in the tier, but even then, Salazzle's really good at crippling them. It draws Mantine and Gastrodon in like crazy and can super easily get a Toxic off. Super easily knock them with knockoff. And I've also seen some talk of Focus Sash with Nasty Plot lately, which I haven't used myself, but something to consider. And Salazzle being super fast naturally just helps. Obviously, you can never really bypass the Choice Scarf Mienshao vibe check in terms of speed. But it's still nice to be able to get a jump on a lot of the other non-boosted Pokemon. So, Knockoff plus Toxic sets are really, really great at supporting their team. And Focus Sash sets with Nasty Plot can give common revenge killers like Mienshao and Flygon headaches. I'm pretty like you actually just straight up drop Flygon with +2 Dragon Pulse, and of course Mienshao already sometimes won't have coverage for you. But even if it has like Rock Slide or Stone Edge, then well, you know, kind of just gets dropped. So Talonflame, only to A-. I voted it to A, but anyone that's playing the tier right now knows Talonflame's all over the place. It is one of the best utility mons we have. It's super fast, so you can always kind of just use it to soft check something that maybe is threatened out by its flamethrower. It could be a great fogger, it could be a great status spreader, it could be a great pivot with U-turn. And Flame Body is nice because, hey, you can burn fish against Beware, you can burn fish against Mienshao, you can burn fish even against Goro. Amazing pivot. Super fast and provides a lot of utility between U-turn, defog, and status. Also can burn fish with Flame Body. I'm not going to mention offensive Talonflame sets because I just don't think they hold a meaningful role in the tier. There's just too much that you give up by not going defensive, I feel. And that's not to call offensive sets bad, because I think they have their place. But I think in terms of what these bulkier sets provide, it's just really hard to not justify it. And then we get this Wheezing Nom. Man, I don't know. Neutralizing Gas plus Rocky Helmet equal Mienshao now take damage when pivot. Smiley face. That's really it. So let's get into some drops. Now, Araquanid had dropped a lot of it because Vikavolt, in the eyes of many, the superior web setter. Now, something Araquanid is kind of annoying to deal with. It's pretty strong with Water Bubble. Can spread Toxic still pretty reliably. But Web's not being a particularly relevant build to begin with, and there being questions over if it's even the best web setter, definitely doesn't do it any good. So question marks about if it's even the best sticky web setter. Vikavolt. Still good overall. Still, I'm not gonna call it still a fine overall option, but not really seen enough to warrant its ranking anymore. And I did vote for it to stay because I still think I've run into it enough times that it's given me enough trouble to where I feel we shouldn't drop it. But hey, I understand their rationale. Now, and just a note, in the drop section, there are a few significant drops. One of them is Charizard. So when we first made the VR, I voted for Charizard and Talonflame to both be put in A-, because I felt they were about the same, and I hadn't used them too much to really get a great read on which one is superior. At this point, I can confidently say Zard is trash. Like I said this should go to B-. It is not good. And I almost changed my vote to C because C stands for Charizard. It's just not very good. I feel like you have to run it for its wall-breaking power, because otherwise you just don't really do anything. I mean, Talonflame I feel is just better as like a toxic spreader. If you want to run the same Flamethrower Roost Defog Toxic set, I think T-Flame's better for that. And Scorching Sands just isn't enough of a niche over Talonflame. Oh, I should also add something to Talonflame. And soft check foes like Copperajah, Beware, and Mienshao. Helps to actually add that, I think. Now, I say soft check. Copperajah could have Rock Slide. And that drops you. Talonflame is just better, though. It's a better... well, let's say the only real niche Charizard has is more immediately forcing damage onto foes like Jigalgi, which is something that Talonflame would also let in. Scorching Sands. But otherwise, Talonflame offers more to teams between U-turn and its speed tier. Then we got Espeon dropping. Now, maybe we drop it more in a future update. I'm kind of holding on hope for like trick sets still being decent and Espeon still being, all things considered, a fine dual screen setter. But a lot of it comes down to Xatu. Oh, that's not what I wanted to have there at all. All it comes down to Xatu is the superior dual screen setter at this point in time. And it's because of teleport. Being able to guarantee safe entry for your setup sweepers is really cool. And sure, Espeon has Yawn, but what is stopping your opponent from just switching around every turn and wasting your screens, you know? Yeah, the superior dual screen setter as a result of teleport. We did drop Espeon too far. because it's still a fine setter for all intents and purposes. And there might be something to offensive sets slash trick with a choice item sets. With a choice sets, whoops. That's pretty much my rationale, at least. I don't know about the other people that voted, but this is where I hang my hat on keeping Espeon, at least in the B ranks. I think there's maybe still something to it. Machamp. Why would I use Machamp? Why would I use it? That's pretty much why would I use it? It's outdone as a breaker of the time by Beware and Pangoro, by the big three, I'll say. Beware, Goro, Mienshao. And even defensively, Beware just offers more at this point in time. Now, if Goro and Beware go, I think Machamp becomes a pretty damn good Pokemon. Because I think it just offers more then. Slow Wall Breaker, Machamp is very comparable to Beware with the Flame Orb set. Guts Machamp ain't no slouch. And it's also nice that you get the status immunity versus Vileplume, because maybe a Vileplume could try to, you know, fish for Effect Spore versus Beware. Same with T-Flame fishing for a burn. They don't get to do that against Machamp. They just don't get to do that. So I could see it popping up later on. Now, Scrafty dropping, I mean, it's just hard to use as a setup sweeper right now, I feel. The tier's a lot faster, so Dragon Dance sets aren't that potent. And Sylveon is, and even Comfy are, like, really prevalent, so those bulk up sets aren't the game changer they have been in previous metas. So Dragon Dance sets are a lot slower relative to previous metas. And Comfy plus Sylveon usage gives bulk up. So it's a bit more hassle. Sylveon usage, in addition to the prominence of fighting types like Beware that can set up alongside it. Even throw a Mienshao in there, although I don't know how well Mienshao's taking a +1 Drain Punch even from a defensive set. I don't know how much uninvested Scrafty's +1 Drain does. I imagine not that much. And with Croak, it would be better if Milotic were here, but it's not the most reliable answer to Mantine because you actually do have to fear Air Slash. And obviously you ain't trying to check Gastro. Still a fine defensive core breaker. Because honestly, Stab, Poison plus fighting coverage is really good. But Toxicroak finds a lot fewer opportunities to make use of what defensive utility it's offered through Dry Skined's resistances. So it has less relevant defensive utility compared to previous eras. And now we got some new Pokemon, so unfortunately we have to add a whole bunch of bullshit to see. Hail teams are not completely horrid. And this is the best wall breaker on them. Now, we didn't rank Alola Sandslash despite it also being nominated, and honestly, I can agree with that. Every time I've run into Hail, that mon has done nothing. It's always Arctovish. That's really it. And again, Arctovish feasts because, you know, Gastrodon and Mantine aren't, like, the most omnipresent mons at all. Obviously, it doesn't like Beware, because that mon can take a Vicious Rend even under Hail. I say under Hail. They can take the 170 powered Vicious. But it's not, like, the most consistent build, I wouldn't say. But a lot, you know, Weather Offense, a lot of the time, is not the most consistent. And Hail just really doesn't offer you anything defensively, unlike, say, Rain and OU, where you can get mods like Ferrothorn and Zapdos and Pelipper on there. Articuno Galar, better than it was in Sigilyph meta. Also a good pick on hazard-centric builds. Competitive is really good. You can take advantage of a lot of the defoggers like Talonflame because your bulk is insane. And if you ever get defog versus, you become an incredible hassle to try to switch into. Aurorus, Hail Setter, Stealth Rock plus Encore, good utility. I mean, that's really all I can say about this. Runarigus. Right, Runarigus. Wandering Spirit. Oh no, don't bolt there. No, stop bolt. Stop. Stop. There we go. Wandering Spirit lets it steal Regenerator from Mienshao and Force Helmet. Rocky Helmet. It's funny because it finally has an issue over Kofagregious. Because Kofagregious could do the same thing in terms of preventing the Regenerator healing. Because you just, give the Mienshao Mummy. But Runarigus steals Regenerator. So you could then get that health back. You could actually use Regenerator for your own good instead of Kofa just saying, well, guess you don't get it anymore. Sceptile, it's a good sweeper. It's a good sweeper on Psychic. I'm gonna put this here. I put Psychic in parentheses because Sceptile's still fine on electric terrain. Psychic terrain's just a lot better for it because it gives you first impression immunity, which is helpful against Choice Banded Flygon and Golisopod. Do as you will with that. Solali Ghost. Ghost-resistant Pokemon are largely limited right now to Beware and Guzzlord and other generally easy to beat ones. Solali Ghost has a rather high ceiling in most games because you very well might queue into a team that can't resist multi-attack. As I mean, you just beat Beware down with Psychic Fangs, you beat Guzzlord down with X-Scissor, and all the other mons that resist Ghost, I mean, eh. Even Explosion was mentioned by Roses as being a pretty competent move to have last, just because it immediately gets rid of a lot of the Pokemon that might try to switch into Ghost Valley. So, instead of maybe functioning as a sweeper, you function more as a support mon. Vanillix, Hail Setter, Aurora Veil, good. And then in terms of mons we unranked, we got rid of Druddigon because nobody uses it. Not really used. Probably has some niche with Glare. But meh. I mean, at the end of the day, you could only rank so many fringe viable Pokemon. It's why a lot of these mons up here even, I still voted to unrank. Because I just didn't feel like they were really that relevant in the metagame, despite having some on-paper goodness to them. I didn't want to stuff the VR with too much bullshit. That's gonna be the update. Let's post that. Looks good. Ah, look at me. Expert update, Rabia. Thanks, Rabia. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Honestly, it was a pretty fun video to do, and it's also on the longer end, so I know some of y'all like these. I hope you guys enjoyed this, though. And, as always, I'm gonna put up some discussion points. If y'all wanna, give feedback on those, and hey, get on the forum. Talk up what you think should maybe rise further, drop further, etc, etc. But until next time, whenever the next upload is, I hope you guys are having a great, great life. Stay strong, lads. We're going through some tough times. Finally, you know what? Maybe I want this, pandemic stuff to get over soon because I want to be able to go back to just generally a normal life. So, hey, I know that's taking a toll on some people. I hope you guys are able to continue to do well despite it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.